Today we will read a story about a forest in the desert. But before that, let's get familiar with some words first. Desert. A desert is an area that is very dry. It doesn't rain very often in the desert, and it is hot during the day. Some deserts are sandy. Deserts have rocks and plants too. Many kinds of animals live there. Bend. Bend means to change something that is straight into a curved or angled shape. People can bend too, like the girl in the picture. Stump. A tree stump is the short part of a tree left in the ground after it is cut down or falls down. Temperature. The thermometer in this picture tells you the temperature. The temperature is how hot or cold something is. This thermometer tells about the weather. Dusk. Look at the sky in this picture. You can see that the sun has just gone down. Dusk is the time of day, when it's just starting to get dark. Sometimes at dusk there are lots of beautiful colors in the sky. Enormous. Enormous means very big. Which of these animals is enormous? Yes, it's the dinosaur. The lizard is tiny. Decay. Decay means rot. You know it's important to brush your teeth so they don't decay, but sometimes decaying is useful. When dead leaves and other plants decay, they turn into soil. Then new plants grow in the soil. Look at these pictures. They show how dead leaves and grass slowly decay and become soil. Volcano. It's a volcano in the picture. Volcanoes are mountains that sometimes explode or blow up. They shoot fire, melted rock called lava, and ashes out of the top. Skeleton. We can see the skeleton of a dinosaur. A skeleton is made up of all the bones that support the body of a person or an animal. Prehistoric. Dinosaurs lived a very long time ago, before there were people. We call the time before people wrote about history or what was happening prehistoric. Dinosaurs are prehistoric animals. Next, let's move to today's story. A forest in the desert. Maggie stared out the window of the car at the flat, sandy landscape. Maggie, her 3-year-old brother Diego, and their pa Rents were headed to a national park in Arizona for their vacation. "I can't wait to see some lizards and big turtles," said Maggie excitedly. "I bet they've got some really cool ones in the desert." "I have turtle," said a little voice from beside Maggie in the back seat. "That's right, Diego. Pickles is your pet turtle," said Mama. "David and Caroline from next door will go to our house to feed him while we're gone." "What's the name of the place we're going, Papa?" asked Maggie. "It's called Petrified Forest National Park," Papa said. "But it's different from any other forest in the world. It doesn't have trees." "But don't all forests have trees?" Maggie asked. "This forest had trees a long, long time ago, really enormous ones. Here's the ranger station," said Papa. "Let's stop and ask one of the forest rangers to tell us about it." Papa pulled up to the ranger station, and a tall man in a uniform came over to the car. "Hi, I'm Ranger Pete," he said, bending down and looking into the back seat of the car. "Looks like we have a couple of future junior rangers here." "Ranger Pete, how can this be a forest if it has no trees?" Maggie asked. "That's a good question," he said. "This forest used to have trees, but they died. Usually when trees die or get knocked down, they decay. That means they rot, but not these trees." "How come?" Maggie asked. "Well, a long time ago there was a volcano here. When it blew up, the ashes covered the dead trees. Over millions of years, it turned them to stone. Let's take a walk and look at some of them," he said. Maggie and her family got out of the car and followed the ranger. "Look at the size of this stump," said Maggie. "You were right, Papa. The trees must have been enormous." "Lizard," said Diego. He pointed to a small lizard that scurried onto one of the tree stumps. "You're right, little guy," said Ranger Pete. "We call that a collared lizard because it looks like it's wearing a black collar." "It looks like a little dinosaur," said Maggie. "Has anyone ever found any dinosaur bones here?" "You bet," said the ranger. "Scientists found some bones only a few months ago. They are putting the bones back together to make a whole skeleton." "Wow, I'd like to see that," said Maggie. "I love dinosaurs." Ranger Pete nodded. Looking at dinosaur bones tells scientists a lot about what the world was like in prehistoric times when the dinosaurs lived. "Turtle," said Diego, smiling. "Where?" Maggie asked. Then they all saw what Diego meant. Diego was holding Pickles. "Oh no," said Papa. "Diego, that was naughty. Poor Pickles. It's not good for him to be here." Diego looked sad. "Sorry," he sniffed. "Better not let Pickles loose in the desert," said Ranger Pete. "And we'd better get him some water. The sun makes the temperature here too hot for him." Papa went back to the car and found the box from the pet store where they had gotten Pickles. It had holes in it so Pickles could get air. Diego put the tiny turtle in the box. "Now, it's your job to watch after him, okay?" said Papa. "Okay," said Diego, cheering up. Back at the ranger station, Ranger Pete gave Pickles a little dish of water to help him cool off. Then he handed Maggie and Diego shiny Junior Ranger badges to put on their shirts. He even gave them a badge for Pickles. "You can put this on Pickles' dish at home. He'll be our first turtle, Junior Ranger." Maggie and her family thanked Ranger Pete, got in the car, and headed out of the park. It was almost dusk, the time just after the sun sets. Maggie and her family looked out the windows at the many colors of the desert and sky. "Wow," said Papa, "look at all those colors." "Rainbow," said Diego. "It does look like a rainbow," said Mama. "A beautiful red, blue, lavender, pink, and orange rainbow." The end.